Hi everyone, welcome back to another video, and in today's video I want to explain how APIs work in the simplest way possible. So an API, which stands for Application Programming Interface, is a set of rules and protocols that allows different software applications to communicate and share data and basically to use each other's features. So you can simply say that an API is just a bridge. What it does is it connects two things together. On one side we have the front end, which can be your mobile app, your websites, and on the other side we have the back end, which is where your data and your logic live. The API is what connects them together and allows them to talk with each other and share data. So one of the best ways we can explain this, or one of the easiest ways we can explain this, is for you to think about a restaurant. You are a front end, the kitchen is the back end, the waiter is the API. Most of us are familiar with this, and what that means is that you don't actually go to the kitchen yourself. What you do is you talk to the waiter, and the waiter, you tell the waiter what you want, and the waiter goes onto the kitchen, and then the kitchen prepares the food. The waiter brings it back to you, and that is essentially how an API works. So your app never actually talks directly to the database. Your app communicates with the API, and then the API goes on to receive your request. Your API goes on to talk to the backend and then sends the responses back. So when your Flutter app wants data, it sends a request. You could say something like, give me all the users, or create a new user, or update this user, or even delete this user. The API understands that request and also responds with a feedback. So your API or your front end, your website makes a request, and then your API takes that request and feeds it back with a response. So these are the main types of requests that you see. There would always be specific types of requests that your front end can make to the back end. There is the get, which is basically saying give me data. There's the post, which says create a new data. There's the put, which is for you to update an existing data, and then delete, which removes data. And that was what we call REST. We would speak more about this in coming videos where we actually explain and see just how each of these requests work. So when people say I built an API, what they really mean is that they built a system that listens and sends back responses to a front-end application that is consuming those responses. So let me make it even simpler. Your app actually never touches your database. Your app only talks to your API, and then your API talks to the database, and that keeps things very safe and organized. So we have your front end, we have your API, and then we have your database. So when you open Instagram, the app sends a request, the API gets your feed, the API sends it back, and then when you send a message, the application also sends this data, the API saves it, and then the API replies. So you are using API every single day without knowing. It might not be obvious to you, but for every time you make a request on an app that your favorite app that you use, you are pretty much using an API at that point in time. So APIs are just rules for communication, and they say things like what data can be sent, what data can be received, and how it should look. So when you build a backend in C# and you create endpoints, you're actually building an API. And when your Flutter app calls those endpoints, it is using an API. So essentially the flow is that the front end asks, the API listens, and then your back end works, and your API responds. So the front end shows the result, and that's pretty much the whole cycle. So if you understand this, you understand how modern apps are built. So in the next video, I'll show you how long it takes to become job ready and what you should actually focus on. Thank you very much for watching the video so far, and I will see you in my next video.